Hello! Welcome to our first annual Alumni Make Sizzlers. I'm going to go ahead and go over the things that we need to prep at home. We recommend that you buy pre-shredded lettuce, pre-shredded cheese, and olive slice. I'm going to go ahead and take these vegetables, I'm going to go wash them, and then we're going to get cutting. So, the first thing we're going to cut today is going to be our tomatoes. So some of you may like to cut this out. I'm going to show you a quick way to do this where you don't have to use a tomato shredder. So, you just typically take that, and then we slice around it. And then you take the inside. And now, no waste. So, nice and easy. So, I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of the tomato up. And we always want to have a bowl that we can put our prep into. Tomatoes. Quick wipe. And you always want to clean your cutting board in between items just to not mess up the flavors. And again, all of these options are optional. They don't necessarily have to be something you have. And here we have our waste bucket. So we compost everything here at Keene State College, so everything that can go into a compost bucket is going to go over here for me, and I'm going to take it and send it to the compactor manager. Next up will be our red onion. So what I like to do, cut the top off here, take the hair, twist it off, and then while leaving the root on, cut it in half. So now you can come and you can peel the onion, still leaving the root, and you have it connected. This is going to actually make it way easier to dice our onion. So I like to cut this like a rainbow. So as you go through, you kind of bring your knife across. So you come in starting at this side. As little waste as possible. Nice time. Do our onion and pepper medley. So this one we're going to do a little bit different. We're actually going to cut both sides of this onion off and then cut it in half. At this point, peel our onion again. So this isn't as good for dicing because when you try to cut, it's going to start to fall apart. But since we're cutting it into what's called a julienne cut, this is actually the best way to do it. Same thing, using that kind of rainbow technique, you're going to come in. And then you get your nice little cuts. Same thing here. All right, so we have our onions, but we want this to be a medley, so we're going to go ahead and cut all of our peppers at the same time. There are a couple of different ways to cut a pepper, but the one that I prefer that has the least amount of waste is this. Cut the top, cut the bottom. This is now savable. I like to use it, save it for my omelets or stuff on Sunday. And then you're going to take this pepper, cut in, and then roll through. And cut out the inside. So now all the waste that we have is just the stuff you wouldn't normally eat on the pepper. All the rest of it is salvageable, and then you come through and you simply julienne. Your cuts be the same size. This isn't necessarily for show or for bragging rights, it's about cooking. So when you cook the pepper, if one is this big and one is this big, this will cook a lot faster. So if you don't have to be as fast as me, you can take your time on doing these things. And just make sure that everything we're doing we make it as good as we can. So same thing, we're going to cut through, do our little roll cut. And then one technique you may notice I'm using while I'm cutting is called the bear claw. So anytime I hold on to a vegetable, I have this knuckle out, and that's my guide. This is how I make sure that I don't have to go to the ambulance or to the hospital with push. All right, peppers and onions. So.
Go for it.
All right, now we're going to start the chicken. There are a couple things to keep in mind when you're dealing with chicken. One is no matter what you work with, you want to make sure you're working on a clean surface that you clean before and after. Chicken, when not cooked properly, can lead to salmonella, which no one wants. So we're going to cook our chicken to 165 degrees, and we're going to make sure that we wear gloves. If you can't get gloves, just wash your hands vigorously on both sides of it. I'm going to start with a sheet tray with a piece of parchment, and then a little bit of not a lot, just to make sure it doesn't stick. Now, we are going to buy boneless, skinless chicken breast. You are more than welcome to sub out and buy thighs for this, but the recipe that we use here at Keene State College is chicken breast. So, I've got a couple boneless, skinless chicken breasts here. And then we're just going to very lightly season. The important thing here to remember is that if you over season this, you can't go back. You can always add a little bit more when we're heating it up, but it's really hard to go backwards once you put it on the chicken, and you can't taste the raw chicken. So, seasoning, season from up high. The closer you get, the less even the spread is. And then we're going to flip it over. And we'll. Now notice I'm using one hand for the chicken and one hand for the seasoning. That way I can use the seasoning for other items. If you start putting this in, you kind of lose all the salt. Alright. And then we're going to go ahead and put this into an oven. This will take approximately 25 minutes for the size chicken breast I have. Cooking time will vary based on where you're at and the size of chicken breast that you purchase. The skinnier they are, the less time they take. I like to cook them at 350. At home, that would be 350 to 375 depending on the oven you have. And then if you don't have a thermometer, you are cooking to 165 degrees internal temperature, or fully cooked, no paint whatsoever. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So now we're going to cook the peppers and onions. So we're going to take a little bit of, this is a canola oil blend. Feel free to use olive oil if you prefer. But around here we like to use the canola oil blend. It just has less flavor and doesn't, so there's no allergies in that. So always add oil to your pan first. And let that oil get hot before you start cooking. You don't want to cook in a cold pan. It's bad for the food. What is this? I like to always have a spot for my spoon so it's not to dirty my counter. I like to add, you always want to add your salt and your pepper as you go. You don't want to add it all at the end or all at the beginning. You want to add it as you go through. That way it can start to pull out the water. So what happens is osmosis is the process of cells balancing out the saline. So when you add salt to the outside, the low sodium on the inside of the water will be extracted out, which will then let you caramelize your onions better. We don't want to go any further than this. If we were going for caramelized onions, we would turn it down. But for what we're doing today, we're going for a more sauteed look. We're going to go ahead and add our peppers. You'll notice that the ratio of peppers to onions is about 3 to 1. This is just a personal preference. If you prefer all the onions, more onions. Less onions, less onions. No onions, that's okay too. We're going to go ahead and put the pepper here. And then so now we've let these cook for a little bit. This is a personal preference. You can cook these as long as you want or as little as you want. I personally prefer somewhere in the middle. I like a little crunch left to my peppers, but I like my onions cooked all the way, which is why I started it so you see there, and then you've got a little crunch left to your peppers. And this is something you're going to want to do before we start our demo to make the sizzler. So that
Go.
all right, now we're going to cut up the chicken. So we are going to send out an optional way to do this where you put it into a food processor. So anybody who has a Robocoo or a KitchenAid at home, you can go ahead and just throw your chicken in, turn it on, buzz it up. I'm going to show you how to do it with a knife just in case you don't have access to that. So the goal here is to have strips but very small thin ones. So we're simply going to go through and cut our strips. Just like that. Now, if anyone has chicken that's a little bit bigger, what I suggest is taking it and cutting it in half. And then cutting them into the strips. Your goal is something approximately this big, and the chicken will break up a little bit as you work with it a little later. Now, you can do this a day ahead, and we can reheat it together when we're doing the live video, or you can do this just before it starts and hot hold it for yourself.